Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And today's Q&A is the 28th that we've done. And out, because I'm doing this on a Monday, so this week's episode's out already, and it's Kate Seddon. So awesome episode for landscape designers. But yeah, had a lot of great advice. And it was a great story as well. I particularly loved how she had some of her employees working flexible hours. So then they're working 8 or 9 days a fortnight. So I reckon that's a pretty important thing for businesses to be able to do going forward, being more flexible and working towards what your employees can work rather than having set hours that they have to work to, specifically in landscape design where it's a bit more flexible in the hours that you can work. You're more likely to get more employees to choose from and happier employees as well. The first question is an anonymous one. It said, how many square meters of crazy paving are you getting through per day per guy? So it took me a while to learn how to quote accordingly for this, because I used to just quote on what I could do or what we used to allow for when I was an employee. So we would allow, I think, 6 square meters a day per person and always comfortably meet that. But then not everyone lays at the same speed. So what I do is I think my guys will do 2 or 3 square meters in a day. Once you take into account cutting and laying and grouting. So I'll allow 2.5 square meters a day in quoting, and then I can do about 9, depending on what stone we're doing. So if I can't do any of the work myself, I'll still make money out of it when my guys are doing it. But if I want to do it a day or two where I can smash out a bit, then I'll make a lot more money out of it. So you want to allow for worst case scenario, and then if it's not like, then you're going to make more money out of it. But I spoke to this person as well, and they were like, it also depends on the thickness of the stone you're using too, because I've seen that there are some 30 or 40 mil thick crazy paving, so that's going to take long to cut through to be able to get to the shape you want. And there's also people doing different quality maybe of joins when you're doing crazy paving. So some people like having consistent joins or tight joins. Some people don't like having 4 corners all meet. So there's a lot of different variants in how people like their crazy paving to look. So that's also going to dictate on how you want it, how fast you're going to do it. So yeah, that's one of the reasons my guys are a bit slow, because I've got a lot of stupid rules that I make them follow, which no one else would notice, but I notice it, and now they do as well. So next question is from Graham Rowe, and he said, any advice for a young real estate agent trying to branch out into the landscape industry? Well, full marks for using the term branch out in the landscape industry. I appreciate that pun, but no doubt it was intended as well. My advice would be to start studying horticulture. So I think you could work on your plant knowledge a little bit more from what I've heard, and that'd be a good way to get your foot in the door to some of these big companies. I just had a question come through from MSul saying, do you do your own social media? If so, how much time do you put into it? I do, and it varies on how much time I put into it. So for the last quite a few, I reckon could even be a couple of months, I've done bugger all because I can't be bothered. So a lot of people talk about how they don't like doing social media because they feel pressure to post, and there are various things that they feel like they have to do things for it, but you don't have to do anything on social media if you don't want to. So so when I can't be bothered posting, I won't post. The reason I didn't do the Instagram live last night, couldn't be bothered. So I just put it through to today. No one's paying you to do anything for your social media or Instagram live, so you don't owe anyone anything. So if you don't want to do something, don't do it. And that way there's no pressure on you as well. The amount of time I spend on it, well, if I'm making the stop motion videos, spend way too much time on there, but that's more in the actual production rather than editing it. I don't spend a lot of time editing it. because there's been times where I have, and you edit the post and it looks amazing, and then you post it and it gets a quarter of the views of what your normal posts do, and then you could put through like one of my posts actually. I reckon it was the post after I did a stop motion one. So I did the stop motion, spent hours on it, and then the next day I did a video that probably took me 5 minutes to do, including editing it. And then that one the stop motion one got, I think, 20 or maybe 30,000 views. And the one that took me 5 minutes got 1.2 million, I think. So if you don't enjoy doing it, there's no point doing it. So I enjoy most of the time I enjoy doing it. And there's a lot of garden show stuff. I plan on posting that a lot more. But yeah, haven't had the time or energy to be able to do it. So just haven't done it. If you're like, it's a good marketing ploy to consistently do posts. So if you're wanting to build a brand and that sort of thing with your social media, it is important to do it even when you can't be bothered. But if you just do your social media for your own enjoyment and then getting business out of it is a side effect of that, then you'll be a lot less worried about the performance of it, and you'll probably do better out of it as well by doing that and not worrying too much about it and not spending too much time on it. And Semi Walsh fan page said, top 3 landscape companies in Geelong in your opinion. And he's got a question. He did ask a question and said, or top 3 favourite ones in Geelong. So I just finished interviewing Kurt O'Toole from Urban Elements Landscape. So he would be one up there. He'd be one of the top 3 and one of my favourites. But it's hard to pick. I also have to say Night Landscapes, they do a lot of nice work that we do the same kind of, we target the same kind of work. So obviously he would like Dan and his guys would like the work that they do, I assume, and I like that as well, like that style of work. And there's a small company called InStyle Gardens who do pretty nice work as well. Did I take the easy option and just mention 3 businesses on the podcast? Yes, I did. I'll just scroll up there. Oh. And Cam from Abcam Horticulture said, what program do you edit the videos with? So I use a program called DaVinci Resolve, and it's free, and it's an amazing program. And like 99% of the things I use in life, it does a hell of a lot more than what I actually use it for, but it does everything I needed to do. And I was a guest on a podcast today as well, the Australian Lawn and Garden podcast, and I was talking to Luke, who runs that, and he was giving me some advice on some AI apps that he uses for his podcast. So I'll be giving them a try going forward as well. So they sound pretty impressive. Dan from Revive Living Walls and Landscapes said, Revive Landscapes Living Walls. How are you going? Really? Question mark, really. So wanting to really know how I'm going, but I'm going pretty awesome. So I'm not someone who anyone would need to worry about. Have a pretty positive outlook on life. And because if you think about anyone who's having any struggles, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Things will improve. Like everyone goes through difficult times, and I have done in the past, but nothing that ever would be something that you think is going to last forever. So there's far more positive things in life if that's what you focus on. So I've got 3 kids who are pretty awesome to hang around with, and a beautiful wife. So and yeah, nothing else really matters to me. Tom Lynch had a question. Before I go to that, I did see a comment from Luke saying that Luke guy sounds pretty cool. Sure does. Actually, it's one of the Australian Lawn and Garden podcast. I hadn't listened to it until he asked me to go on his podcast, but I started because I didn't want to not know anything about it. I binged probably 70% of the episodes, and it's probably like I'll definitely be listening to all of them and going forward as well. There's so much information that like he gives in the podcasts. You're far better podcaster than I am. Like he's got a bit of variation in the tone in his voice, so he just hasn't got a monotone voice. And yeah, gets some good guests on and asks a lot of good questions, and they're long podcasts as well, which I like listening to. So I'll be doing a post on it about that later on, but in the coming days. But it's definitely an awesome one to look into. And also one of them, I reckon, might be the 4th episode, but it's one of the early ones. But he talks about how to work out how you need to how much to charge. So it was awesome, that episode. So similar way to how I go about doing it, but he explains it a lot better. And he's also got a video of all the podcasts on YouTube. So that one would be a better one to watch rather than just listen to, because he's going through the spreadsheets and that sort of thing. So also a big fan of the Zig boxes here. So that's his method of payment rather than slabs like some people do. Tom Lynch said, did you ever think about going big with your business and building up to 10 to 20 plus staff? I have thought about it, but I actually thought about having a business in Melbourne as well, because we work for a lot of Melbourne designers. So I could have probably easily have 10 people on, and we would have enough work to keep us busy. But I'm not set up as a person to run that type of business. And so I'd have to employ someone else to run that. And it's just not, it's not something I'm ever going to do, basically. I thought about it, but then the more you look into it, the more you question why you would want to do that. Like I've said it before, I don't know what the likelihood of people who are running 20 staff, if they're making double what I'm making. And if you're not making a heaps more, then what's the point of doing it? They end up taking on jobs that they don't want to do, but they just have to take on work to turn over work, because you've got to keep feeding the beast when you get to that size. So nothing I plan on doing. The most we've had is 5 employees, I think, and that was busy enough. I find when I've got more staff on, I'm doing less work on site, but I'd rather do work on site rather than just running around trying to keep everyone else busy. And I had thought of adding pools to the mix as well, but that'd just be subcontracting anyway. But again, not something I'm going to be doing, because there's too many things that can go wrong. So I'm better off just concentrating on what I can do and what I know, and just try and do that really well, rather than trying to branch out into all these other shiny objects as they come along. And Steve Nyland said he's Burnley, the Hogwarts of landscape design. Definitely a lot of talent comes out of there, but I haven't seen any of the Harry Potter movies, so I can't say. And Tim from Space Capsule Garden Co. has got a great point. So he said double profit of $0 is still $0. That is correct. So, or if you multiply the profit, it's going to be more of a loss than what my current losses are. So I'm not going to be doing that anytime in the near future. But never say never. Well, maybe it could be so another point that Kurt had in our chat today, because he had 20 staff, and he said the reason behind doing that was because he hurt himself, so he couldn't work. So if you can't work for yourself, you need to have a lot of other people doing the work to be able to support your income. So if for some reason I couldn't work, or when I can't work on the tools, maybe I will look at doing that sort of thing. So I've just got a new home loan, so I have to be earning the same as what I'm earning now for the next 30 years. So I'm going to have, and I don't think I'll be able to be paving when I'm 69. So I'll have to think of something to keep the income where it's at. So maybe I will have that many staff on and have to just change how I do things, and go from being on site to off site and just be more of a manager. So that will be a challenge if that ever has to happen. Two Cubs Camping has got a couple of questions, and he said, how would you approach a client if a job ends up taking longer than you quoted for? I just wear it. So I don't, if the job takes less, I don't give the client any money back. And if it takes longer, I don't ask for any money. So a quote is a quote that's there so that you know as the business owner how much it's going to cost, how long it's going to take, and so that the client knows how much it's going to cost as well, more importantly. So if you say you're going to do the work for X amount of dollars, and they have someone else who said they were going to do it for more than that, they've picked you because you cost less. You can't then do the job and then say, I actually cost twice as much as what I thought it was going to be, so give me some more money. So yeah, you win some, you lose some. Hopefully you win more than you lose, and if you lose, just learn from it so that you can be better next time. His other question was, what's the best method for a strong timber cantilever bench seat? So all the ones I use, I do a steel frame. So I'll do like steel L-shaped brackets bolted to whatever is available for it to be bolted to, or concreted into the ground. And then I'll attach timber to that. So that way you don't need like a 45-degree brace to help with that, because it should be welded so that it's strong enough without that. But yeah, all the ones we use have got a steel frame. Alchemy Landscaping said, what's your process for scope creep or constant changes during construction? So it's kind of similar to the Two Cubs Cammy question, but if it's just little things getting added on instead, rather than just taking longer than what was quoted, what I do is not what I would recommend to do. So what I do is just, most of the time, is just say yes to everything because you've got a good relationship with the client. Sometimes you might let them know how much it's going to cost for a certain thing, but a lot of the times they build a good relationship with you, so they're aware it's going to cost money, and then I'll just invoice them sort of towards the end for the extra amount. But the best thing to do is to invoice them at the next invoice for those extra things that they've added on. And you would have wanted to tell them that what the price extra is going to be before then, so that they don't say, "Oh, can you add 50 square meters of paving to this?" And then they didn't realize it's going to cost as much extra as what it did for whatever reason. So you want to tell them how much the extras are going to cost, but then also invoice them just in case they thought it was going to be anything different. So and then that also helps with the cash flow. So then you don't have to worry about it with your other milestone invoices. And it's also, if you don't give them a price, it's even more important to invoice them as soon as possible, so that if there is an issue with it, that issue is not happening at the end of the project, so that you can sort things out before you get to the end of the project. But that's not how I do it, but that's how I should do it. One Landscape Australia said, do you design yourself or do you outsource? So we've got a landscape architect who works for us on wages, so she's full-time. So it's been about 6 months since she's been with us, and yeah, it's going really awesome so far. So we're mainly doing domestic designs, but there was one commercial one that we'd done, and that was where she'd come from, doing commercial designs. And the domestic ones are really good. Like, I'm really happy with them. But the commercial one that she designed was just phenomenal. Like, I was blown away with how amazing it was. And it was good because I charged like 3 times what we normally charge for a design for it, because there was a lot involved with it, but absolutely delivered on that. But we don't do the 3D ourselves. We do outsource that, but everything else we do in-house. Barrow and Stone said, what's your favourite shovel or spade? Long arm, short arm, square mouth, round mouth? So it's a shovel is one of those things I learnt about with the first guy I worked for. He was saying how, you don't use one shovel for the same thing. And I thought, that's a bit weird, but I'm sure you can use this one shovel for the same thing. But now I find myself telling my employees when they start that each shovel's got its own use. So post hole shovel is used for digging holes, and a square mouth shovel is used for picking up materials. So there was one guy we had, I reckon it was when I was an employee, he recommended getting a long-handled square mouth. So I got one of them, but didn't like that at all, because when you're picking up, like, say, crushed rock, for example, with a square mouth, it's heavy enough as it is, so you want to hold it as short as possible and close. So there's no reason you'd want to have a long-handled square mouth shovel. He was talking about picking up mulch with it, but actually that's one of my favorite hand tools, is a mulch fork. I remember discovering one of them after we'd previously just been loading mulch with the square mouth into a wheelbarrow. And then you just cover a mulch fork and it's phenomenal. So, but if I had to pick a shovel, it'd be a post-hole shovel. Cyclone ones are the ones we use, but anything with the wooden handles, always nice. Rich Earth Landscape said, how's your team going? They're going pretty well, as far as I know. We put on an apprentice. He lasted a few weeks, and they said it was too hard, so he quit. And then I put an ad out for another apprentice, and there was one guy who I thought, yep, this guy seems like a good one. So I called him 10 minutes after he sent his email through to apply. Didn't hear back. So next morning, I sent him a text message saying, let me know if you're still interested. Haven't heard back. So he applied, and then within 10 minutes, he changed his mind. And then I had another fella, same deal. He put in his application. I think I rang him within half an hour. And then I said I was going to try and catch up with him on the weekend. Turns out I was too busy on the weekend. So I said, I don't know if we'll be able to catch up today, but we'll make it during the week. And he said, oh, never mind. I've changed my mind anyway because X, Y, Z. So I've had two people apply who I think were worth putting on. I would have offered them both a job, and then they've both changed their mind before I've even had that opportunity to do so. So that sort of thing's not going well. But there are at least 3 others who I'll look at tending to come in for a trial. So yeah, it's hard to tell from just an emailed resume, but there's been a couple who've actually been proactive and called or texted to make sure I got their application. So at least they're actually, that shows something above the minimum. Ultimate Retaining Walls said, how do you navigate doing work for family or friends? So best advice for that is to not do it. Then nothing can go wrong. The semi-old fan page asked that one. Answered that one, sorry. Local Green Bean said, get LinkedIn or not? So similar to the question where I was talking about how often I spend on social media, and I was just saying, as long as I want, and if I can't bother doing it, I won't do it. It's the same with LinkedIn or any other of the different types like TikTok or Facebook or Instagram. You want to do it if you enjoy doing it. So there's no point doing it if it's a chore, because you might do it for a few weeks or a couple of months, but then if you're not enjoying it or getting any value out of it, you won't do it. So if you want to do LinkedIn, then go for it. Like I opened up an account for it and did it for a little bit, but I'm more used to the Facebook, Instagram kind of thing. So that's what I enjoy doing more. And it's quite different to that. So I haven't done anything on it for probably more than 12 months. I think it's good if you're wanting to meet up with designers or make, don't know what their term is, but make contact with designers. But it's more of a white collar kind of app. Actually, James has asked, are you in the closet? Yes, I am. It is my son's closet. So when I do come out of this, I'm not coming out of my own closet. It's coming out of my son's closet. So not sure what that means. So we'll go to the next question. From Abcam Horticulture. What's the most pivotal or biggest business decision you made? Definitely the time when I decided to get back into landscaping after I was working at the bank and actually having a vision and goal of where I wanted to work towards. Because just going along blindly, I was enjoying it and I was making good money, but there's no long-term vision to doing that. But some people will still do that fine. But I wanted to get more satisfaction out of it. And I was doing jobs and seeing other jobs that were getting done so I was doing like the bottom end of the market jobs. And then I was seeing the high-end market jobs and just admiring them and wanting to do those type of projects. So rather than just dream of doing them, I just made a plan of how to do that and set about how we're going to do that. And I was patient with having to work towards that as well, because it's not going to just happen in the same year that you start trying necessarily. So just set yourself a goal, work towards it, and it's really satisfying when it actually happens. And the last question is from the Planter Space. Do you ever go plant shopping yourself or just order and have them delivered? Are there pros and cons to either option? So most of the time I'll get them delivered. But coincidentally on, I think it was Tuesday, I spent all day driving around Melbourne. Started off, I left home at 4:30 and ended up in the Mornington Peninsula at 7:30 at Peninsula Plants. And ended up driving 680 Ks on Tuesday, just picking up plants for a job in Point Lonsdale. Was it worth it? It's a good question. Because like I did have a lot of plants on there, and I had some delivered to that job, and like delivery was $560 for one truckload of plants. It wasn't a lot of plants. So so I went to I think 4 different nurseries to get plants. So yeah, it would have been interesting to see what it would have been worth, and maybe it would have cost less, but I could have been doing something more productive rather than driving the truck. So who knows? But I wanted them there on that particular day, and I wasn't organised enough to have got it in before that, so had to do it. So I probably didn't lose anything on it, but didn't gain either. But yeah, get them delivered as often as you can, because if I pick them up in my truck, they're likely to get wind blown. So yeah, try and be organised and get them delivered. But yeah, and I've had a couple more questions come in. So Steve Nyland said, would you ever consider being a mentor for someone they've asked, similar to how Ian Barker does? I would, but not in a formal agreement, because I don't like the pressure of having to provide value or results for someone. So I've had people reach out to me, and like I had a designer reach out saying, can you have a look at my designs and let me know the information in it and how it looks from a construction point of view? Like if I was to get it as someone to quote on it, has it got the information in it that I want, or has it got too much information? So so someone asked me that, so I jumped on a Zoom call and looked at their design and went through that with them. So yeah, I'll do that sort of stuff, but not for any official official capacity. So it's all care, no responsibility that way. So if people pay me, then they're probably going to expect more. So don't pay me, expect nothing. And Samuel's fan page said, you mentioned Urban Elements as one of your favorites. What's your reasoning behind that? It's because he is on a podcast episode with me it's not next week, it's a week after. So I was just being, can't think of the word. Boring is not the word I was looking for, but just being boring and plain and choosing people who have been on the podcast. All right, that was it. For some reason, sometimes when I do these Instagram lives, I forget how to breathe while I'm talking at the same time. So apologies if there was some deep breathing in there. My wife will probably hear it from downstairs, but hopefully it wasn't coming through too loud on the podcast. So as I said earlier, Kate Seddon's episode is out this week, and it's a cracker. And next week's episode is the first one I've done with 2 guests at the same time, because there's 2 directors of the one company. So that's going to be a good one as well, like an awesome episode for landscape construction and people wanting bigger companies too, because they've got a fair bunch of staff in there. So yeah, we'll do this again next week. So shoot through some questions when I put the box up, and thank you very much for everyone who did submit one. Yep, One Landscape's got a question in just at the last buzzer. How many weeks in advance are you booking up with guests for the podcast? So that varies. So the one I did with Kate, I reckon I did that. Let's just have a quick look. When was that recorded? That was the 26th of June. I recorded that. So that was like 4 weeks ago. So I think I had 5 episodes in the bank at that time. At the moment, I've got 2. So yeah, it just varies. So I'll go in a bit of a wave where I'll do a few in a week and then none for a couple of weeks. But yeah, I've got 2 at the moment. And then I've got to get Luke on, who was on the Australian Lawn and Garden podcast, because he's a great person to listen to. So but yeah, that's hopefully going to come up in the future. But yeah, again, thank you very much to everyone who asked a question, and we'll see you next week.